Previously, we've discussed how you could spawn trees in Public Zeus, but I wanted to expand on that. Here's how you spawn forests in Public Zeus. Step 1. Go to Eden Editor and place down an invisible helipad. Step 2. Go to the video description and copy the use code line, then double click on the helipad and paste the code into the init box. Part 1 of the code establishes a for loop which will repeat the code between the curly brackets. It has been set to repeat this code 10 times, meaning 10 trees will be spawned in this case. Part 2 of the code creates a private variable called random rot, whose value is determined by selecting a random number between 0 and 360. This will be used to give the trees a random rotation. Part 3 of the code creates a private variable called tree. This variable will represent the tree we are going to be spawning. This is selected by using the selectRandom, which will randomly select one of the tree file directories in the array. Part 4 of the code creates a private variable called location, which will store the coordinate location of the invisible helipad. This is achieved by using the getPosASL function. Part 5 of the code's role is to generate a random change in the tree's x and y coordinates. These changes are represented by the two private variables ranPosX and ranPosY. ranPosX will use the sine rule multiplied by a random angle from 0 to 360. This is then multiplied by a random number selected between 0 and 30. This last number represents the maximum radii distance from the invisible helipad, so if you want to increase the spread of the trees, then increase this value. This process is then repeated for ranPosY, only this time it uses the cosine rule. Part 6 of the code creates another private variable called object, which will spawn our selected tree at the location of the invisible helipad. This is achieved with the createSimpleObject function. Part 7 of the code will use the setObject rotation on our object, ensuring that it's upright by setting its pitch and roll to 0, but its yaw to be set to the random rot value that we established earlier, ensuring that the trees don't look the same when placed next to each other. Part 8 of the code then changes the position of the tree by using the setPosASL function. This is achieved by changing its x coordinates by adding ranPosX to its current x coordinate. Its y coordinates are set by adding ranPosY to its current y coordinate. And finally, its z coordinate or altitude is set by using the getTerrainHeightASL function, which uses the tree's new x and y coordinates to work out the terrain height. This is used to ensure that the tree is placed relative to the ground and allow these forests to be deployed on nearly all terrain. The final line of code is outside of the for loop, which uses the deleteVehicle function to delete the invisible helipad. In summation of the code, it will spawn in 10 randomly picked trees, which will be given a slightly random rotation on its yaw and randomly placed upright and at a maximum distance of 30 meters from the helipad, where upon completion the helipad will delete itself. Step 3. Save the invisible helipad as a custom composition and leave Eden Editor. Step 4. Go onto an official Bohemia Public Zeus server, go to the compositions and empty subcategory and select the save custom composition and left click anywhere or press Alt and left click. And that's how you spawn forests in Public Zeus. Goodbye.